All right, we are back. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Please make sure that you have an opportunity to see our previous 3 segments that we did this morning, and that you also have an opportunity to share them with some friends. You can find them by going to youtube.com/America's Voice Now. Please find our Facebook page where you can make sure that you are interacting with us and getting all kinds of other information that we post up there every day. We're telling you the truth that the mainstream media and the Ministry of Propaganda are trying to hide from you. And our goal is every day to make sure that you are educated and aware, that you have enough information to make informed decisions, that you can educate and inform yourself, inform and motivate those in your circle of influence to take action to preserve our and restore our republic. Without that, without your action, without your motivation, we are in big trouble. And here's where Dianne Feinstein and a whole host of other folks are completely and dead wrong. They have come out and stated that unless you are on drawing a salary from one of the Ministry of Propaganda organizations in the mainstream media, that you're not a real journalist. And here's where the rub comes on this, and here's the problem I have with this. If you are going to say that your First Amendment right is restricted based on whether or not you're hired by a mainstream media organization and you're on full-time staff, the goal is to shut off the flow of information from people like me, from people like Sam Bushman, from people like Vince and Joyce Riley, from people like Beth Ann, from people like the Sargent Report, from people all over the nation who are trying to educate and bring awareness out to you so that you really are informed about what's happening. We are the whistleblowers. We are the Paul Reveres right now. We are those patriots that are hated and scorned and scarce. Not that we're scarce for our patriotic beliefs, that we're scarce because we're the only ones who are standing up and speaking about it. We're the only ones who are taking action about it. And we need leaders like you to participate and assist us. Because if they have their way, they'll shut this fountain off. And when we're out of the picture, who will take our place? You see, the value of having literally thousands upon millions of informed Americans who are taking a leadership role and blowing the whistle on what's happening here is incalculable. Because once that happens, and we can't be an organized group, that defeats the whole purpose. We have to be decentralized. I have to be able to do what the things that I feel are important and educate those around me. We each need a voice. But they're trying to shut your voice down. They're trying to limit your voice. They are trying to limit your ability to hear my voice. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a dangerous place for us to be. California Senator Dianne Feinstein has proposed an amendment to the Media Shield Law. Now, I want you to understand the Media Shield Law for what it really is. First and foremost, they're using this because of the Rosen from Fox News thing where they were monitoring his phone calls. And so they're out there trying to pass a Media Shield Law, which offers First Amendment protection. Well, on the surface, that sounds like a good thing, but think about it for a moment. Use your critical thinking skills here. First and foremost, do we need a law when we already have something called the First Amendment that is the rule of law that for all intents and purposes, controls the entire nation? The answer to that should be obvious. No, everyone has a right to their their right to free speech and to redress the grievances with their government and to assemble, whether that assemblance is electronic or otherwise, in person or whatever. So here's what the Media Shield Law is trying to accomplish. It's an irrelevant law that's ignoring the protections that are already being afforded by the First Amendment. So it's duplicative of something which is already superseding it. And to me, the entire thing is really all about trying to narrow down the definition of what the First Amendment really means. And that, in the hands of folks like Dianne Feinstein and Chuck Schumer, is dangerous. They would limit the law's protection only to, quote-unquote, real reporters. not bloggers or other upstart alternative media types. Now, folks, these are their words that I'm using here. Charles Schumer, he's a Democrat. You got to be careful how you take this guy's language, because he in some cases is defending the bloggers out there, but by the same token, I'm wondering which bloggers he's defending, right? Because there's a lot of progressive and collectivist shills out there who are doing the work of this administration. And I think that's what he's really worried about. He's not worried about a guy like me, trust me. Chuck Schumer says, the world has changed. We're very careful in this bill to distinguish journalists from those who shouldn't be protected. WikiLeaks and all those. And we've ensured that. He goes on to say, but there are people who write and do real journalism in different ways than we're used to. They should not be excluded from this bill. I got to tell you, Chuck and Diane. Chuck and Diane. Wasn't that No. That was Jack and Diane. I got to tell you, here's the problem with your thinking there. First of all, we are already protected by the First Amendment. You don't have to be very careful in this bill to distinguish journalists from those who shouldn't be protected. And I've got to be deeply concerned when I hear the words shouldn't be protected relating to the First Amendment. It sounds to me like you're trying to put a fine edge and you're trying to verbicidally decide who gets protection and who doesn't. And I'm telling you right now, I don't trust you, and I don't trust Diane. This bill is actually moving through Congress, and it would require the Justice Department to notify reporters it decides to monitor. Here's the real challenge. If you're not a reporter, then the Justice Department doesn't have to notify you, does it? Aha! That's the real crux. And, secondarily, the next thing you'll hear is that this law will require journalists who are protected to be what? Listen, here it comes. Licensed. Remember, once you are licensed, that's a license that they can withhold or take away from you. You are already effectively censored because you've been co-opted and coerced into the point where you have to obtain a license in the first place just to have your free speech rights. You see, where this is really going is trying to lock down the language and lock down the education that people like me and people like Sam Bushman and people like Joyce Riley and people like Vince Finelli and people like Beth Ann and John Moore, these are the people who are out there truly giving you an education. They're the ones who are telling you what's really happening. And we're not alone, by the way. I told you before about the Sargent Report, SGT report. If you're not hitting that website on a routine basis for information, you're missing the mark. I can give you the names of 100 websites out there that are doing exactly what we're doing. Go to the libertyroundtable.com. That's Sam's location, right? Go to Gizmodo and read. Now, Gizmodo is a fairly large organization. Go read what they have to say. Gizmodo. Gizmodo.com. Go to there and find out what they have to say about all this NSA stuff. Find out what Wired Magazine has to say about this stuff. Find out what the New American has to say about this. Find out what the Washington Times has to say about all these things. You see, there are organizations out there. Now, all of those groups will be considered to be true journalists. It's the guys like me that they want to shut down. And hopefully the folks like you. You see, every one of us should be writing, blogging, speaking publicly. Not just one at a time to our friends and the guy you have a cigarette with or a beer with on a Friday after work. I'm talking about every one of us. I get it. Some people are very, very fearful of public speaking. But, you can talk to the people at your church because there it won't be public speaking. It'll be talking to the friends and the neighbors and the people that you associate with every single day. And if your church won't allow you to do that because they've capitulated to the concept of the 501c3 argument that churches cannot have political issues related to the separation of church, based upon the separation of church and state, find yourself another church. Because I'm here to tell you right now, churches are betraying their congregations and their flocks in droves. In droves. The vast majority of them who will say to you, you cannot, and for the record, if you're not aware of this, DHS has actually got a program out there which is encouraging and enlisting clergy to keep you calm when civil unrest begins. Did you know that? Oh, you didn't? Okay. Try looking that one up. Clergy are being enlisted right now by the Department of Homeland Security to keep their congregations calmed down and accepting of the upcoming hard tyranny process and move that comes forward. That, ladies and gentlemen, should tell you a lot. We're talking here about the opportunity for the clergy to say to their congregations, don't get upset, don't take action, don't protest. If your clergy is telling you that, ask them if they're part of that DHS program. And if they tell you yes, run. If they waver because they don't want to answer, run faster. Because that means that they're lying to you about not only that, but other things. Are they selling out their congregations? Are they acting as betrayers of their own flock? You see, in your church, you are a member of that community. So speaking to a group of people in your church is no different than talking at a large family event. Maybe a family reunion. You shouldn't be uncomfortable to get up and speak. And churches, of all places, are the original, the best community organizers that have ever existed. In fact, they exceed by hundreds and hundreds or perhaps even thousands of years the community organization of Barack Obama and his ilk. So why are you not taking advantage of that opportunity to be a Paul Revere in your own community? Why not? You see, you can't just spread the word one at a time. Now, you need to walk in there prepared. You've got to have evidence and you've got to have enough documentation that you are believable. You can present it, and I got to tell you, if you can't present it in words because you feel like you're not articulate enough, then just make sure that you bring enough written documentation to support your assertions and let those documents speak for you. But give them out and present them in a way in which everyone has an opportunity to hear, see, understand, and be awakened. Did you know that 70% of George Washington's generals were pastors? The Black Regiment, the Black Robe Regiment, that's what they were called. You see, the vast majority of the officers in our Revolutionary War were pastors. I got to ask you, how many pastors do you know today that are actually in the patriotic movement to restore and preserve our republic? Very few. I'll tell you why. The principle of the 501c3 corporation has corrupted them. They have accepted that in place of truthful support and defense of their own congregation. And they're so worried about being taxed on that gift you give them that they're willing to sell your birthright down the river for it. You congregations in churches need to be sitting your pastor and your elders and your leadership down. And you need to be, as a collective group, saying, they are, by the way, they're no different than government, in the sense that you, as the congregation, are the church. They are nothing other than your leaders. But they are leaders there who have no congregation, no army to lead if you all vacate the premise. And if they are not willing to stand up and defend you when the time is right, then you don't need them as a leader. And you should find yourself another church. If you don't have the ability to vote them out of your as a congregation, then just find yourself another church. Why am I so harsh on churches? Because our First Amendment right is under attack. I just evidenced that to you. And your church feels like they have to acquiesce to the concept of the 501c3, which is not even factual. It's a misrepresentation and a bastardization of the real principle of the separation of church and state. And if they don't know that, then they're not the right church for you to be attending. Why am I so harsh against churches? Because they are the original community. And if you don't have that community, you are adrift in a sea of tyranny. You should be working actively with other members of your congregation to sit your leadership down and say, we need to know exactly where you stand. Question them. Interrogate them. Have you been contacted by the Department of Homeland Security to participate in their clergy program? Ask them flat out and see what they have to say. Because if they have, and they have agreed to participate in that, then you need to find yourself another way to go. I'm going to find this article for you. The clergy response team, that's the term I was trying to find for you. The clergy response team. Ask your ministers, ask your elders, ask your associate pastors, have they been contacted by Homeland Security and asked to participate in the clergy response team? If you don't know what it is, the clergy response team is intended to have pastors support the agenda and keep the congregations calm when civil unrest comes. And this isn't something that's even secret by the DHS. I mean, they're not making it, they're not publicly talking about it, but there's no secret about it. If your clergy has fallen prey to this, you need to know that. And why do you need to know that? Well, because if a community organization is made up of a church, which is a built-in community of like-minded, like-motivated believers, and I don't care, by the way, whether you're a Baptist or you're a Protestant or you're a Catholic or a Jew or a Muslim or any other darn thing. If your church cannot be a bastion of self-supporting, self-reliant patriotism for the preservation of our nation itself, because, mark my words, under tyranny, the first thing that goes is religion. Yours, by the way. So the simple truth is this. If your clergy or any member of your church's leadership has succumbed to the clergy response team and the Homeland Security Project, they should be expelled from your church, or you need to find yourself another church. It's that simple. They have agreed to sell you down the river, no different than Judas who betrayed Christ. And they've done it for whatever purposes, whatever their 30 pieces of silver equates to. I don't know, and I don't care. It doesn't matter. What does matter is the commitment they've made to take a stand against the best interest of their own congregation. Once we have reached this tipping point, community organization won't be so easy. First Amendment rights will be squashed and quashed by the steel fist of tyranny. If your church can't participate in that, if your community can't participate in that, then how are we ever to get word out to all of our fellow patriots? We're not. That's the point. Homeland Security and these Congress people who are sitting there saying that they have the right to determine who has free speech rights and who doesn't. Folks, I can't think of a better definition of tyranny than that. Can you? You got to realize how far down the rabbit hole we've fallen. And I invite you to do yourself a favor and take a look upward. Just look skyward for a moment and notice that tiny, 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 barely visible speck of light at the top of the tunnel. And realize just how far down the hole we've gone. This is a disturbing concept that people like Chuck Schumer and Dianne Feinstein, and I got to add in there, these are Republicans in there too. Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham is one of perhaps the most, he's perhaps the most shameful, and him and McCain are two of the most shameful traitors in the conservative movement. Never call yourself a conservative again. Because a conservative means that you are willing to conserve and preserve that which we have, the status quo. And I got to tell you, if this is what we're preserving for future generations, I don't want any part of it. And you shouldn't either. What we really need to have is a return back to the rule of law, where tyranny is far, far, far away from us. Not riding on our backs, not sitting in our churches, not taking place in our workplaces, not taking place on our computer monitoring and your email and capturing dossiers and building it in the Obamacare data hub. There is no purpose whatsoever that any value will come from these dossiers being built upon Americans. Ask your clergy what that means for America. And if they are intellectually honest, and they are honest with you, they will agree that we have reached the point of tyranny where ministers, flock leaders, pastors, imams, rabbis, priests need to be taking action to preserve and defend their own congregations. If they have fallen prey and succumbed to the 501c3, then they're willing to sell you out for a tax break. Wow. Really? You mean to tell me your clergy's going to sell you out for a tax break? Boy, they didn't even demand 30 pieces of silver, did they? That's the America we live in, folks. That's the new America. And I, for one, am totally and abjectly 100% diametrically opposed against it. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Please find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org. Please sign up for our email list and send me email to mike@americasvoicenow.org. I love to hear from you. I get hundreds of emails a day, and I actually respond to those that aren't just chain mail. I get a ton of newsletters and things like that too, but I respond to those people who write me individually, at least as best I can. So I encourage you to participate to that. You can send me an email to mike@americasvoicenow.org. Please visit our website and educate yourself with those stories that we have up there. Please find our Facebook page because we load up stories on there as well, and we want you to participate there. You can go there by going to facebook.com/America's Voice Now. Please like that page because by doing so, you allow us to share with your friends and the people that are liked on your page or are friends of yours. Also, please make sure that you have an opportunity to visit our channel at YouTube and share this video or others similar to it. We have hundreds of them up there. And this is a perfect way for you to begin to take action by sharing a link and just saying to a friend, hey, you ought to watch this. This is that conversation we were having the other night. Isn't that a great and simple and easy thing for you to do? And it doesn't have to be only mine. This isn't for personal ego or aggrandizement. If you don't share mine, share somebody else's. Go to Storm Cloud's Gathering and take a look at their stuff. It's phenomenal. Far better than I can do. The point is, we are at a crossroads and we are at the tip of the iceberg. There's nowhere that we can move up anymore. At this stage in the game, we have to realize just how close we are to the end of freedom in America. Again, youtube.com/America's Voice Now. Facebook.com/America's Voice Now. AmericasVoiceNow.org, and email me at mike@americasvoicenow.org. Thanks so much for being with us today. I appreciate your attentiveness and your listenership. Please share with your friends and educate those around you. We are in desperate and dangerous times. I appreciate all of your consideration and sticking with us. Make sure you see that video on our Facebook page about the actual, and I posted it at the top to make sure it wouldn't go away. This is the subliminal stuff that was pumped into our brains back in the 60s. Make sure that you watch that. It's 8 minutes that will change your mind about everything. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow morning.